Hi, I'm Aileen. On the day I moved into my first home, my mom slapped me, not for what I did, but for what I refused. She wanted me to hand over my $40K savings to fund my sister's honeymoon to the Maldives. Then they staged a party to shame me. They canceled it behind my back. They spread fake emails, forged messages, and dragged me to court. All because I said no. But worse than the betrayal was the quiet orchestration. The way they smiled while selling my worth behind closed doors. Now I'm asking you, what would you do if your family punished you for choosing yourself? If this story feels familiar, hit like, share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for the full truth. The walls were bare, the furniture sparse, but to me this house was perfect. It was mine. Mine after 3 years of working late shifts, skipping vacations, saying no to things I couldn't afford just to say yes to this, my first home. A modest 2-bedroom bungalow in West Charleston with creaky floors and lemon trees in the backyard. It wasn't much to some, but to me, it was everything I'd built by myself. And for a moment, I stood in the quiet glow of the early evening sun, letting pride settle into my chest like warm tea. Then the doorbell rang, and it didn't stop. I'd invited a few close friends, my coworker Noelle and Daryl, my partner of 2 years. Nothing big, just a small gathering with boxed wine, frozen quiches, and mismatched folding chairs. But the people who stepped through the door weren't the ones I had texted. There were cousins I hadn't seen since my uncle's funeral, a few neighbors from my childhood street, and even my old high school geometry teacher. And they all greeted one person like she was the guest of honor. My mother. Lorraine floated through my new home like she owned the deed, hugging people, guiding them to the fridge, smiling that politician smile, the one that never quite reached her eyes. She wore a soft pink wrap dress and a gold necklace I hadn't seen before. Beside her, Tiffany clutched a mimosa like a movie star at a press junket. My younger sister looked out of place, like she belonged in a Malibu brunch, not a South Carolina starter home. "Mom," I said carefully, pulling her aside into the hallway. "What's going on?" "Oh, honey," she said with a faux laugh, patting my shoulder like I was a toddler who had asked why the sky was blue. "You've worked so hard. I thought you deserved a real celebration. I just sent out a few invites." A few? The place was packed shoulder to shoulder. I could barely recognize my own house under all the noise. "You should have told me," I muttered. Her smile faded just a touch. "You're welcome." And then she clinked her wine glass with the edge of her bracelet. Everyone quieted. "I'd like to make a quick toast," Lorraine said, raising her voice just enough to fill the room. I looked at Daryl, who stood near the windows, hands buried in his pockets, giving me that "are you okay?" "Look," I nodded. Barely. "To Aileen," my mother began. "My strong, beautiful daughter, who finally moved into a place of her own." "Bought," I corrected under my breath, but she continued. "After many years of hard work, we are all so proud of you. Your father and I always knew you'd make something of yourself." Polite applause. A few murmured, "Congratulations." Then came the shift. "And as a mother," she went on, "it brings me such joy to support both my daughters in their journeys. So after some careful thought, your father and I have decided to give Tiffany the remaining $40,000 from Aileen's wedding fund to help with her honeymoon in the Maldives." The room fell silent. My first reaction was to laugh. I actually laughed, because that had to be a joke, right? I scanned the crowd. Nobody laughed with me. "I'm sorry, what?" I said, loud enough for the whole room to hear. My mother smiled gently, like I was overreacting. "You don't need it right now, sweetheart, and Tiffany's wedding is coming up fast. She and Nathan want to start their marriage with a beautiful memory." "That money is mine," I snapped. "You and Dad gave it to me 3 years ago. It's in my personal account." "Technically," Tiffany cut in, "it was always meant for a wedding. If you're not using it..." I turned to her. "You blew through your college fund, your startup loan, and now you want mine too? Are you serious?" Tiffany's lips curled. "Maybe if you weren't so uptight about everything, you'd understand what generosity looks like." I felt heat creep up my neck. My hands were trembling. I could hear whispers all around me. Coworkers, family, strangers, watching this unfold like it was a reality show. I earned that money. I budgeted every penny. I even planned to use part of it for a down payment. You think you can just take it? My mother's voice dropped an octave. Don't make a scene, Aileen. You already did that for me, I snapped. And then it happened. Lorraine took one step forward and slapped me. A sharp, full-handed blow across my cheek. The kind of slap you feel before you hear. The kind that silences a room. My head snapped to the side. Glasses clinked somewhere behind me. I touched my cheek, not out of pain, but disbelief. I'm done, I said, voice low. You don't get to hit me and steal from me and pretend it's love. No one moved. Not Tiffany, not my father, who stood silently near the back like a shadow, not even the server who had just set down a tray of stuffed mushrooms. But someone did move. A woman near the bar pulled out her phone. I saw her mouth the words assault into the speaker. A moment later, she looked at me and nodded. Sirens weren't far. My mother's face paled. I didn't flinch. I didn't apologize. And when the red and blue lights reflected through my living room window, I didn't hide either. The ride to the station wasn't long, but it felt endless. The patrol car smelled like antiseptic and rubber floor mats. The officer didn't speak much, just soft instructions and the occasional glance in the rearview mirror. I sat still, my cheek still warm from the sting, the echo of it pulsing deeper than skin. My palms were flat on my lap, holding back the tremor. Somewhere between my mother's hand and the flashing lights, something fundamental had shifted, and I could feel it cracking inside me with each red light we passed. Once inside the station, they offered me water and a tissue. I declined both. I wasn't crying. Not yet. The officer who took my statement, Detective Wren, was soft-spoken and surprisingly kind. He didn't treat me like a dramatic daughter or an emotional mess. He listened, carefully. When I told him she slapped me after announcing she was taking my wedding fund and giving it to my sister for a luxury honeymoon, he blinked just once. Did you feel physically endangered? No, not in that moment, I said. But I felt humiliated. It wasn't just the slap, it was the setup. He nodded. You want to press charges? I hesitated, not because I didn't want to, but because part of me still couldn't believe this was real. But then I remembered the way Tiffany smirked, the way my father said nothing, the way my mother's voice curled around the word selfish like she'd practiced it. Yes, I do. I signed the report, took a copy, and asked if I needed to do anything else. For now, no, Wren said. We'll issue a citation. She'll have to appear in court. I stepped out of the station a little before 7:30. The sun was gone, but the heat clung to the pavement. Daryl wasn't outside. I hadn't asked him to come. I needed to do this alone. I drove myself home in silence. The house, my house, was still littered with party trash. Half-filled plastic cups, napkins crumpled on windowsills, someone's heel mark on my white entryway rug. My stomach turned as I looked around. I didn't even get to celebrate it. I sat on the edge of my bed and finally picked up my phone. 37 missed texts, 9 voicemails, dozens of notifications. I opened the first thread, family group chat. Aileen, you embarrassed yourself. You didn't have to make a scene. She's your mother. Have some respect. She didn't mean it. Tiffany, of course, stayed silent in the chat. Her work is always behind the scenes. I scrolled through screenshots they were sharing. Blurry photos of me standing, arms raised, face twisted in shock. No context, just visual evidence to support whatever fiction they'd decided to believe. Then I saw the post. A cousin, someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year, shared a note on Facebook. Some people think they're better than the rest of us, but disrespecting your own mother in front of friends? I don't care how independent you are. That's trashy. Hundreds of likes. Some family, some friends of friends, some I didn't even recognize. They were crafting the narrative before I even left the station. And they weren't done. Around 9 p.m., I got a message from an old client, Janet Connors, head of a nonprofit I'd worked with during a marketing campaign 2 years ago. Hi, Aileen. I hope everything's okay. I just wanted to let you know we're going to pause the rollout for the fall campaign until further notice. I heard a few things and, well, I think we should give it some space. I reread it 5 times, paused the rollout, heard a few things. I opened my email, scrolled past spam, newsletters, and receipts until I found a new chain labeled Potential Behavioral Concerns FYI. It had been forwarded from someone named Britley, Tiffany's college friend, and a notorious gossip. In it, Tiffany had attached a 3-sentence summary of my emotional instability, referencing an old rumor from when I was 21 and battling stress-induced anxiety. She said she was worried about my mental fitness and suggested that maybe clients should be alerted for their own protection. I felt my lungs collapse a little. She had gone there, not just to strangers, but to my livelihood. I sat at the kitchen island, staring at the screen as the minutes passed, and finally closed the laptop. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I didn't call Daryl or Noelle or even Carmen, my lawyer friend. I just whispered to no one, "So that's the game." Because it wasn't about the money, it wasn't even about Tiffany's honeymoon or the housewarming party. It was about control, about breaking me down in a way that made them look justified. My mother slapped me once. Tiffany was planning to make sure the world slapped me over and over again until I stopped standing. But she had miscalculated. I don't crumble. Not quietly, not in the dark, and certainly not for the comfort of the people who set the fire, then asked why it was hot. They didn't just want my money. They wanted to ruin the reason I earned it. I barely slept. I kept replaying every word, every glance, every whisper from the night before. At some point around 3:30 a.m., I moved from the couch to the bed, but never closed my eyes. I stared at the ceiling until sunlight began bleeding through the blinds. I thought maybe if I lay still enough, the chaos would fade. But it didn't. It just took on a new shape. By 8 a.m., I was at the kitchen table nursing a mug of bitter coffee when my phone buzzed. "Daryl, we need to talk, now." I froze. We hadn't spoken since the party. He had left quietly, his face unreadable, his hands shoved deep in his coat pockets. The kind of silence that doesn't break, it settles. I stared at his message, my thumb hovering over the reply. Then I typed, "Me. Come over? Daryl, I think you should come here instead." I drove over without brushing my hair, still wearing the same clothes from yesterday. No makeup, no armor, just me, raw and stripped down, like someone who'd been hit by a car but kept walking because no one stopped to check if she was okay. His apartment was quiet, dim, the curtains drawn like he hadn't touched them since the night before. He opened the door, then stepped aside without a word. I walked in. On his coffee table sat his laptop, open, a file displayed mid-screen, proof.pdf. I didn't ask, I didn't sit, I just stared. He pointed at it. Someone emailed this to me around 2 a.m. from an anonymous account, and he hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck. "Your mom and sister were CC'd. No message, just this." I stepped closer. My stomach clenched before I even saw what was on the screen. There I was, or at least someone who looked like me, pressed up against a man I'd never met in my life. In some were blurry club shots, in others posed bedroom selfies. My face was clearly edited in, badly. The lighting didn't match. The necklines were off. One photo had me holding a glass of red wine, with 2 right hands. I let out a breath that was more like a half laugh. "Are you kidding me?" "They're ridiculous, I know," Daryl said. But they sent them," I finished for him. "And you wondered?" He looked up sharply. "I didn't wonder. Not for a second. But I needed you to see what they're doing." I sat down, my legs too shaky to hold my anger upright. "They want to make it look like I'm unfaithful. So I look unstable, a liar, a manipulator." He nodded slowly. "They want to break everything around you. Your career, your reputation, us." I didn't speak. I didn't have to. The silence between us was heavy enough to say what words couldn't. This wasn't about one fight. This was a campaign, coordinated, calculated, cowardly. "Tiffany's the one who pushed this," I finally said. "My mother might have slapped me, but Tiffany's the one stabbing me from behind." Daryl rubbed his face, eyes red from a sleepless night. "How do you even fight something like this?" I stood. You don't defend yourself. You attack the lie. He gave me a long look. Are you sure you want to do this? They're your family. No, I said, voice steady. They're just people I used to share a roof with. He didn't respond. He didn't have to. When I got home, I didn't take off my shoes. I went straight to my home office and opened an old email chain from a cybersecurity analyst named Cass Donnelly. I'd met her a year ago at a tech event where I did a branding workshop. She once told me, "If someone screws with your digital identity, I'll know in an hour." I typed, "Cass, I need your help. Someone's trying to ruin me with fake photos. You up?" The response came in 2 minutes flat. Always. Send me everything. I'll trace the IP. If they thought this was anonymous, they picked the wrong target. I attached the file, every screenshot, and a photo of the email header. Then I leaned back and let the screen glow across my face. This wasn't just about fighting back. This was about making them regret they ever chose me to silence. They didn't know that for every dirty move they made, I had receipts, proof, memory, precision. And if they were willing to fake my love life, what would they fake next? Because if they were willing to fake my love life, what would they fake next? I didn't even close the laptop. After sending everything to Cass, I just sat there, staring at the screen, heart knocking slow but hard. My coffee had gone cold. The light outside shifted from gold to gray. Another day, same war. But this time, I had weapons too. An hour later, Daryl came over. He didn't knock. I'd left the door slightly open, like an unspoken invitation for backup. We didn't talk at first. He placed his keys on the counter, nodded once, then sat across from me at the dining table, where I'd dragged my entire digital life into piles of files and screen recordings. We reviewed everything again. Metadata, headers, even the saved contact name of the anonymous email that had sent the photos. Cass had replied already. Cass, text. That IP is from an ISP in Charleston, registered under a small business hosting account. Guess who owns it? Let me guess, I said out loud, half to Daryl, half to myself. Tiffany. More than that, Daryl murmured, holding up his phone. Cass cross-referenced the IP with some domain activity. It's connected to her boutique's email server. He tapped his screen and showed me a string of back-end records, login timestamps, form submissions, and most damning, a list of dummy accounts. One stood out, at Secret Rosa Soul. It was used to set up a fake Instagram profile with photos stolen from random lifestyle blogs claiming to be a man named Logan K, who of course had allegedly been seeing me for months. And it gets worse, Daryl added, his face tightening. She used that account to send me messages, flirty ones, like you couldn't be honest, like you were too scared to leave me. He pushed his phone across the table. I read the messages. Cringe-worthy lines like, "She talks about you all the time, but she needs more." And, "She said she feels trapped, and I'm the only one who gets it." It was clumsy, high school-level sabotage, but the intent was surgical. I looked up. She's not just trying to smear me, she's trying to separate me from anyone who protects me. Daryl nodded slowly. And she's not stopping. He leaned back in the chair, the same one he helped me build when we were still putting IKEA furniture together in this apartment, weeks before it ever became a battleground. He looked older today, not tired, just done. "I love you," he said, voice low. "But I need to say something. This whole thing, your family, it's poison. And I don't know if I can walk into a future where your mother and sister still have keys to your past." He wasn't threatening. He was just telling the truth. I didn't cry. I didn't beg him to understand, because I already did. I took a long breath. They don't have keys anymore. Not to me. Not after this. He let out something between a sigh and a breath of relief. "I'm calling them," I said, reaching for my phone. "No more waiting. No more letting them speak first." "No texts," he said gently. "Record it. Or better, voice message. Keep your power." I nodded. Hit record. My voice, when it came, wasn't shaky. It was cold, measured, controlled. "Hi, Tiffany. I know exactly what you've been doing. I know about the fake account, the emails, the photoshopped lies. I know you used your boutique's domain to log in and send messages to my boyfriend, pretending to be someone I cheated with. I have everything traced, documented, and archived. So here's your one warning. Stop now, or the next time you hear my voice, it'll be in a courtroom. I ended the recording and sent it without hesitation. Daryl watched me closely. You think she'll stop? No, but I'll make sure someone else makes her. The sun had dipped past the windows now, and a quiet crept into the apartment. A different quiet than the night before. This one wasn't mourning. It was strategy. I turned off my phone and walked into the bedroom. Pulled out a notebook from the drawer of my nightstand. It was something I hadn't touched in a while. A black moleskin, worn at the corners. Inside were pages of notes, affirmations, scattered ideas for a memoir I'd never believed I'd need. But now, I needed it. I flipped to a blank page and wrote, "They tell their story louder. I'll write mine sharper." Under that, I listed every action, every date, every message, every lie. Tiffany thought she was clever. My mother thought I was soft. But they didn't know I was trained to build narratives, and this one would be airtight, because truth doesn't ask for permission. It just hits harder when it finally lands. The knock came mid-morning. Not sharp, not urgent, just the kind that says, "We don't care if you're ready, open up." I stepped into the hallway and found a man in a gray blazer holding a clipboard and a heavy white envelope. His badge read Certified Courier. His eyes didn't linger. "Aileen Crane?" "Yes." "Sign here, please." I signed. He handed me the envelope and left without another word. The moment I saw the sender, Sorrel and Brandt LLP, my stomach dropped. I didn't need to open it to know what it was, but I did anyway. Inside was a lawsuit, filed by my own parents. I stood in the doorway, rereading the words, as if maybe repetition would change the meaning. Plaintiffs, Owen and Lorraine Crane. Defendant, Aileen Crane. The accusation, misuse of family-managed trust assets. They called it misuse. They said the $40,000 wedding fund I'd used for my down payment was not fully released and intended for family purposes, not personal profit. They claimed I acted in excess, showed entitlement, and refused reasonable redistribution in the interest of family equity. I dropped the envelope onto the kitchen counter like it had burned me. Tiffany's name was peppered through the filing, not as a co-plaintiff, but as justification. She was in need. She deserved support. She was next in line to marry and was currently facing significant financial strain due to her entrepreneurial risk-taking. I nearly laughed, and then I saw it. On the third page, attached to a notarized appendix, my father's signature, Owen Crane, my dad, the man who never raised his voice, who used to carry me on his shoulders at the state fair, who stayed silent when Mom slapped me at my housewarming. He hadn't stayed silent anymore. He'd signed. Something broke in me then, but it didn't shatter. It crystallized, cold, sharp. I didn't cry. I sat. I took a photo of the document and texted one person. Me. Carmen. Urgent. They filed. 15 minutes later, I was in her office. A third-floor suite off Meeting Street, nestled between an immigration law firm and a Pilates studio. Carmen Sorrel was 43, steel-spined, and unbothered by bullshit. She wore red lipstick like armor and kept her nails short and clean. She didn't offer sympathy when I arrived. She offered coffee and a pen. "Let's see what they've got," she said, flipping through the complaint with a surgeon's grace. I watched her eyebrows rise, just slightly, at the phrasing. "They're banking on emotional pressure, not legal merit. There's no clause in your account that makes this a managed trust. It's yours." She closed the file. "They don't have a case. Then why file it?" Carmen looked me in the eye. "Because they want a stage, not justice. They want you to look like the villain, and court documents are public record." I nodded slowly. "So now what?" "Now we show them what happens when the villain knows the law." I left her office with a plan and a folder of documentation instructions. But as I stepped out onto the sidewalk, I felt the weight settle again. Not because of the court, because of the signature. My father didn't just stand back this time. He stepped forward. He put ink to paper and chose a side. And it wasn't mine. I didn't go home right away. I stopped at a quiet bench in Colonial Lake Park, sat beneath a wide oak tree, and stared at the copy of his signature until the letters blurred. My hands didn't shake, but I felt something inside hollow out. I used to think the worst thing a parent could do was betray you out loud. Now I knew the worst thing was betrayal dressed in calm. I finally made it home around 2 p.m. I changed into soft clothes, tied my hair back, and pulled out everything I had: bank records, emails, dated screenshots of every communication, and even childhood birthday cards that mentioned the fund as a gift. Then I added the fake photos, the slander from the group chat, the messages Tiffany had sent to Daryl pretending to be my secret lover. This wasn't just about a slap anymore, or a party, or even a dollar amount. It was about control. They wanted my silence, and when they didn't get it, they wanted my identity. And now, they wanted my home. But they'd picked the wrong woman. The pressure hadn't let up since Sunday. But now, it wasn't just lawsuits and forged photos. Now it was something new, more subtle, more insidious. It didn't hit me all at once. It crept in like a bad smell, something off that you can't quite place, until it's everywhere. It started Tuesday morning. I was sipping lukewarm coffee and checking emails when a text came in from Maura, an old college friend I hadn't seen in over a year. Maura: "Hey, hope everything's okay. We got your cancellation message. Didn't want to intrude. Sorry we didn't reach out sooner." Cancellation? I scrolled back through my sent folder. Nothing. No cancellation email. I hadn't canceled anything. I hadn't even planned to. I tapped out a quick reply. Me: "What cancellation? I didn't send anything." 2 minutes later, another ping, this time from my old boss, Harriet. Harriet: "Heard about the party cancellation? Just wanted to say I hope you're holding up okay. Let us know if we can help." By the 5th message, it clicked. Someone had impersonated me. Again. But this time, they didn't just forge lies to ruin me privately. They forged my voice. I logged into my work email. Nothing there. But when I searched my name through Gmail's public lookup, a second address popped up: aileen.crane.events@gmail.com. I didn't create that. And I sure as hell didn't write the email it sent out. Subject: party cancellation. Thank you for understanding, dear friends. Due to unforeseen family matters and emotional strain, I've decided to cancel the housewarming celebration. I appreciate your kindness and understanding during this deeply personal time. Warmly, Aileen the Gall. They wanted people to believe I'd crumbled, that I couldn't handle it, that I had something to hide, that I was weak. But that wasn't even the worst part. At 11:47 a.m., Carmen called. "I just got something you need to see," she said. "Check your email, I forwarded it." It was a PDF file, a fake budget. The title read, "Aileen's Housewarming Expenses Paid from Family Fund." My jaw clenched as I scrolled through the breakdown. $5,000, champagne tower, $3,000, custom embroidered napkins, $2,200, floral walls from Charleston Luxe Events, $1,800, signature cocktail mixologist, $750, personalized party favors. Not one of those expenses was real, not one. And yet, Carmen confirmed, this document is being passed around your extended family. Your cousin Meredith forwarded it to 3 aunts. It's already in circulation. I blinked at the screen. Where did it come from? Anonymous, but the metadata shows it was created on Tiffany's MacBook. Of course it was. Fake party budgets, fake cancellations, fake affairs. There was no line they wouldn't cross. They weren't just gaslighting me. They were staging an entire alternate reality and daring me to live in it. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. For 1 full minute, I said nothing. Then I grabbed my phone and opened Instagram. Time for a different kind of statement. At Aileen Crane Official, post caption, I didn't cancel my party. I didn't buy champagne towers or custom linens, but someone really wants you to think I did. There will be no further silence. I have documented every manipulation, and if you think this won't go to trial, you're mistaken. Hash family does not mean silence. Within 10 minutes, the post started gaining traction. Messages poured in, some supportive, some stunned. Some said nothing but sent heart emojis. Daryl reposted it with a single word: truth. I walked into the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and stared at my reflection in the microwave door. For the first time, I wasn't trying to salvage anything. Not the holiday dinners, Not the fake smiles at baby showers. Not the illusion that my family could still be salvaged. I was done pretending the fire wasn't real just because they smiled while striking the match. They wanted to tear down what I'd built. Not because I'd done anything wrong, but because I'd done it without them. And that's when they stopped trying to silence me and started trying to erase me. They tried to bury me under paperwork, drown me in slander, uninvite me from my own narrative. So I did what they never thought I would. I hosted the rescheduled housewarming, on my terms, under my rules, with guards at every entrance. Saturday came with warm skies and a breeze just strong enough to ruffle the lilac bunting I'd strung across the porch. There were fresh flowers in glass vases. Soft jazz played low through the outdoor speakers. My guests arrived in waves. Colleagues, friends, neighbors, people who knew me for who I was, not the twisted version of me that had been passed around in PDF files and group chats. This time, I had private security stationed at the front gate and another posted near the kitchen door, the same one Tiffany tried to sneak through the last time. Every guest showed ID. I had a list. If your name wasn't on it, you didn't get in. Around 4:30 p.m., I was chatting near the lemonade stand with Daryl and our friend Simona when a guard approached me quietly. "We've detained someone at the back gate," he murmured. "Female, mid-20s. Claims to be your sister." I didn't blink. "And?" "She had a large tote bag. We searched it." He paused, as if still trying to make sense of what they'd found. Then he handed me a series of photos snapped on his phone. Inside the bag, a 1-gallon jug of red paint, 2 sets of disposable gloves, a folded-up banner, and, my heart hitched, printouts of my wedding mood board. My face had been scratched out with thick black marker. She was going to ruin everything. And she didn't come alone. The guard continued. "She said something odd when we stopped her. My mom said I should do what feels right." I turned slowly toward the street. Down the block, half tucked under the shade of a jacaranda tree, sat a dark sedan. Lorraine. She didn't step out. She didn't wave. She just sat there, hands on the wheel, sunglasses hiding whatever emotion might have flickered in her eyes, if any. When the guards approached her car, she didn't argue. She didn't explain. She simply pulled away. I stood still for a moment, letting the image of it all burn into memory. Tiffany caught with paint and my face defaced. Lorraine waiting in a car, complicit by silence. All of it felt like the punchline to a long, cruel joke they'd been scripting for months. Daryl joined me as the guard asked, "Would you like to press charges, ma'am?" I didn't answer right away. My hands weren't shaking, my voice wasn't caught in my throat. I was strangely calm, almost surgical. "No," I said. "Not today." The guard looked surprised. Daryl didn't. "But," I added, "make sure neither of them gets within 10 feet of this property again, and make a report. Document everything. Their names, the time, the photos, her statement. I want a file they can't delete." He nodded. "Understood." As he walked away, I turned back to my guests, to the afternoon sunlight spilling across the lawn, to the people laughing over lemonade and mini quiches. The party continued, like they hadn't just tried to desecrate it. And that was the point. They didn't just want to disrupt my life. They wanted to humiliate me in front of others. They wanted to see me cry, to see me crumble. But I wasn't built to collapse. That evening, as the last guest said goodbye, I walked into the kitchen and placed the printed mood board Tiffany had defaced onto the table. I laid it beside the lawsuit, the fake emails, the fabricated budget. I wasn't just collecting memories anymore. I was building a case. They failed to destroy the party, so next, they tried to destroy me in court. By the time Thursday came, I wasn't nervous. I was prepared, not emotionally. No amount of preparation could dull the wound of being dragged into court by your own family. But legally, Carmen and I were ironclad. We had evidence, real, verified, time-stamped truth. And more importantly, we had motive. Their motive. Documented and undeniable. The morning air was unusually still as I stepped out of the car in front of the Charleston County Civil Courthouse. I wore navy. Simple, clean, grounded. No flashy accessories, no look-at-me attitude, just composure. My heels clicked with precision down the corridor, echoing off the marble. Daryl stayed behind this time. It wasn't his war to fight. Inside the courtroom, Lorraine and Tiffany sat opposite me, 2 rows back, heads close, whispering. Lorraine looked like she'd aged 10 years since the slap. Tiffany, though, had her hair done and wore a pastel suit like she was auditioning for a bridal magazine. A part of me almost pitied her delusion. Almost. The judge entered. We rose, and Carmen began. She didn't speak fast. She didn't overcomplicate. She simply laid it all out. The forged emails, the fake budget PDF, the impersonated cancellation notice, screenshots of Tiffany's fake Instagram account, the metadata behind the Photoshop images, statements from friends, clients, and the cybersecurity expert who traced everything back to a device registered under Tiffany's business name. Carmen never raised her voice once, but every sentence felt like a dagger being slid across glass, clean, sharp, deliberate. "I'm not here to expose a dysfunctional family dynamic," she said at one point. "I'm here to show this court how one woman was systematically targeted, defamed, and financially threatened by individuals who should have protected her." She let that hang, and then it was their turn. Their lawyer tried to argue miscommunication, emotional distress, and even leaned into the family entitlement angle, as if the $40,000 was a donation, not a custodial fund legally turned over to me years ago. When Lorraine was asked if she had instructed Tiffany to impersonate my email account, she replied, "I told her to do what she felt was necessary." The courtroom murmured. The judge raised an eyebrow. Then came the moment that nearly broke me. Tiffany's testimony. She claimed the fake messages were jokes. "My sister has always been dramatic," she said, laughing lightly. "She misunderstood everything." That's when Carmen pulled up the folder titled Intent, screenshots, voice memos, one especially damning email in which Tiffany wrote to a friend. "She's always been the golden child. Time someone knocked her down a peg." The silence that followed was deep and crushing. The judge ruled swiftly. In my favor. Not only did he affirm the legality of the fund transfer to me, but he also explicitly rebuked Lorraine and Tiffany for actions taken with malicious and reputationally harmful intent. The words felt like salve to a wound that had burned raw for months. Outside the courthouse, I saw the reporters waiting, microphones raised. Lorraine stepped forward before I could say anything. "This has all been blown out of proportion," she began, her voice brittle. But a younger reporter, maybe fresh out of college, cut her off. "Ma'am, we've seen the documents." That was it. No further questions, no follow-ups, just silence. She stepped back like she'd been slapped with her own story. I didn't need to say anything. That night, Carmen, Daryl, and my friend Noelle came to the house. We didn't toast. We didn't talk strategy. We just sat in the living room, lights dimmed, eating Thai takeout, and watching a rerun of Jeopardy. Like nothing extraordinary had happened. But something had. And the truth? The court gave me justice, but peace I had to find on my own. The letter that didn't deserve a reply. The wind carried no tension that morning. I opened my back door and stepped onto the porch barefoot, coffee in hand, letting the warmth of the mug settle into my fingers. It had been 3 weeks since the verdict, since the last time my name had been dragged through courtroom transcripts like a cautionary tale. But now, the quiet had weight, the kind that felt earned. Inside, I hummed faintly as I watered the fiddle leaf fig by the window. It had wilted during the chaos, but slowly it was reviving. Like me. Later that afternoon, I made a grocery run to the local Harris Teeter. I moved slowly down the aisles, scanning labels like I hadn't seen them in years. When I turned into the frozen section, I heard a voice. "Aileen?" It was Miranda, my cousin on Dad's side. We hadn't spoken in months. "I saw the news," she said, eyes soft. "I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you. Not many people would have stood their ground like that." I nodded, polite but guarded. Her words were kind, but they didn't undo her silence when it had mattered. Still, they lingered in the air like a candle someone had finally lit. Back home, as I unpacked groceries, I noticed something unusual sticking out of the mailbox. An envelope, slightly thicker than usual, sealed with a familiar swirl of cursive. Lorraine. For a moment, my hand hovered. I debated tossing it straight into the recycling. But I opened it, carefully, like peeling off a bandage. The first line was syrupy. We're still your family, no matter what's happened. It read like one of those faux inspirational Hallmark cards you give to someone you've wronged, but don't actually want to apologize to. Then came the stingers. You could have handled things differently. Tiffany was just trying to be happy. You always made everything harder. I stopped reading. I folded the paper, cleaned down the middle, and slid it into the bottom drawer of my old desk, the one I used to keep my teenage journals in. It could stay there, sealed in a place where childish things belonged. I didn't cry, I didn't rage, I just exhaled. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't surprised. Lorraine had never wanted reconciliation. She wanted absolution without earning it. And I didn't need her to own what she did in order for me to heal. Closure, I realized, doesn't require consent. Sometimes it's just a closed door that you choose not to open again. That evening, Daryl stopped by with a small bottle of wine and a bag of takeout from the Thai place I loved. We didn't talk about the letter. We didn't need to. Instead, we focused on rearranging a few things in the hallway. Frames, art, little reminders that this house now held stories I had chosen. When we finally hung the last picture, I stepped back to look. It was a photo from the housewarming. Not the first one, but the second. The real one. I stood in the center of the frame, sunlight behind me, smiling in a way I didn't recognize at first. It wasn't joy, it wasn't relief, it was release. Daryl reached for my hand. You okay? I nodded. Not perfect, not healed entirely, but okay. Because I had fought, and I had won, not just in court, but in choosing myself over the illusion of family that demanded my silence, my sacrifice, my shrinking. They could keep their version of love, the kind that came with conditions, performances, and ledgers of debt I never agreed to owe. I was done paying. Sometimes the deepest betrayal doesn't come from strangers, but from the people who once held your hand. Aileen's story reminds us that standing your ground may cost you comfort, but it buys you clarity. Because love without respect isn't family. It's control with a pretty name. Have you ever had to choose peace over people who claim to love you? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if stories like this resonate with you, don't forget to subscribe. There's more truth, more healing, and more strength in the next chapter.